Bhaja Bhaja Bhai Jai, Bhaja Bhaja Bhai Chaitanya Nitai Sudreda Vishasha Kodi. Bhaja Bhaja Bhai Chaitanya Nitai Sudreda Vishasha Kodi. Vishaya Chariya Shekha Shemhajiya Moke Balo Hari Hari. Vishaya Chariya Shekha Shemhajiya Moke. Vishaya Chariya Bhaja Bhaja Bhai Chaitanya Nitai Sudrida Vishasha Kodi. Vishaya Chariya Rashe Maji Amuke Balo Hari Hari. Vishaya Chariya Rashe Maji Amuke Balo Hari Hari. Parama Koruna Pohudu Ijana Nitai Gaura Chandra. Dekho Odhe Bhai Tribhuvane Nayamana Doyal Data. Pashupaki Jude Pashana Pita Deshane Jada Guna Gata. Pashupaki Jude Pashana Beta Deshane Jada Guna Gata. Parama Koruna Pohudu Ijana Nitai Gaura Chandra. Samsara Maji Rohide Pori Shepode Nahilo Asha. Apana Karama Bunjaye Samana Koha Helochana Dasha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Parama Koruna Pohudu Ijana Nitai Gaura Chandra. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupam Shagrajatam Shahaganaraganatam Vitam Tam Shajivam Shadvaitam Shabadutam Parijana Shaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Shahagana Lalita Shri Shakangitam Shamantra Guru Ajota Shikha Guru Gan Jorane Age Korea Bondon Bancha Kalpa Trubish Chakrapashin the Bebacha Potitanam Pabanaba Vaishnava Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shamati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Shar Shri Debe Gaudavani Prasharne Nirvishesha Shinamari Prashtata Deshatarane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Se Advaita Gadadha Shri Bhashadi Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. We've been discussing how the devotees from Gaudadesh every year were visiting Jagannath Puri, and for that reason Shachi Devi requested Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to reside in Jagannath Puri. You're all able to come and go from Navadip to Puri every year. You can, and that way I will get news of Nimai. And he also may come to Gaudadesh to take bath in Mahaganga. And in this way, there's hope that I will get association of Nimai, and in this way I can maintain my life. And for this reason, Goshundo Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was residing in Jagannath Puri. And then one day he requested Lord Nityananda Prabhu in a secluded place, Nityanandiyai Agyadilo. He ordered Lord Nityananda, Nityanandiyai Agyadilo, Jao Gaudadeshe, go to Bengal, Anargal Prema Bhakti Kodho Prakash, Anargal Prema Bhakti Kodho Prakash. Go to Bengal, honor God without restriction, Prema Bhakti Kodho Prakasha. You distribute love of God, you preach Krishna consciousness without restriction. And in this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delegated Bengal Bhumi, Gaudadesh, Bengal, under the care of his dearmost, his Priyatam, his most dear devotee, and first expansion, Lord Nityananda. And Lord Nityananda is considered the deliverer of Bengal. Even now in Bengal, you often, the presence of Lord Nityananda's preaching here is still very much felt. Jainitai. Still the kirtans of course, the Gaudiya Math, of course, ISKCON preaching so successfully in Bengal Bhumi due to the inspiration of Srila Joy Potaka Shami Maharaj, who was the first foreign preacher to come to Bengal 50 years ago. And at that time, there were no followers of Srila Prabhupada in Gaudadesh, Bengal Bhumi. And now there are millions under the guidance and inspiration of His Holiness Jai Pataka Swami Maharaj, an associate of Lord Nityananda. So Bengal preaching is very special. And still now so many, outside of the Gaudiya line, still there's so many devotees of Nitai Gaud and Gaudiya line. When we say Gaudiya line, we're more referring to the followers of Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and of course Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, although he appeared in Bengal Bhumi in Kolkata in 1896, just recently we visited the Bhaktivedanta Research Center in Kolkata, and we were gifted with a new publication of the life and precepts of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, published in 1896, the year of Prabhupada's appearance. And you can see he's written in his residence in Calcutta. So the year he published that book in English, that was the first presentation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life and precepts in English. The first time that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was actually made known in English language. And in that very year, Prabhupada appeared in the same place in Kolkata where that book was published. And Prabhupada explained that this is certainly no coincidence. Prabhupada appeared for this purpose, to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world and fulfill the desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in this way, Lord Nityananda was ordered, go to Deshe Jao Anarga Prema Bhakti Kodho Prakash, and preach Krishna consciousness without restriction. And having accepted this order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, along with his intimate associates, we're hearing that being discussed, the names of his associates mentioned by Vrindavan Das Thakur, and they were traveling, and they didn't really care what direction they were going in, because they were preaching Krishna consciousness. And sometimes they would ask, well, which way is the Ganga? And someone would say, oh, it's 20 miles this way. And then they would go, and then they would look again. lose direction and wandering here and there. In this way, they're traveling and preaching. And then they arrived in Panihati, a very special place, very Panihati. Still, you can visit. It's less than an hour from Kolkata, from our new town center in Kolkata. It's about 45 minutes. And there ISKCON has a wonderful project. And Nityananda Prabhu preached there extensively, many extraordinary leelas, Kshira, Dahi, Mahamahotsav, which we'll be celebrating in a couple of months. That was that event occurred in Panihati. Goshunda himself preached on several occasions in Panihati. In fact, it is mentioned that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always present in 4 places: Sachi Randane, where Sachi Devi cooks; Srivas Angane, in the courtyard of Srivas Thakur in the Kirtan; Nityananda Nache, where Lord Nityananda dances; and Raghav Raghava Pandit. His house is here in Panihati. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is eternally present in this very special place. Now Nityananda Prabhu, he came there with his associates, and we were hearing the extraordinary pastimes that he was performing, his preaching in Panihati, and the madness of love of Godhead that he was distributing to the people in general, and people were pulling out the trees, in ecstasy in the kirtan. They were uprooting trees, and sometimes the shafuli gach, the pan gach, the thin, beautiful tree that has beautiful golden, the fruit, the pan fruit. I have several trees here in my garden, pan trees. Shafuli gach, it's called in Bengal. And the beautiful golden fruit and fragrant, and they grow in rows. And many, they would take 7 or 8 shafuri gach and uproot them in ecstasy. And they would climb the trees, and they would climb out on the leaves and twigs, dancing on the twigs of the trees. In this way, Kirtan Vilash, Nityananda Abhudut Mahashai, he performed this Kirtan Lila in Panihati. We're reading this week from the Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat by Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. We're reading from the Antya Lila, the 5th chapter. We're beginning this week from text 319. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gopal. Erupe Panihati Gram Tinmash Nityananda Prabhu Kore Bhakti Vilash. And this way, Tinmash, for 3 months, Nityananda Prabhu remained in Panihati, and Bhakti Vilash, he enjoyed his transcendental pastimes with his associates. It's impossible to explain, it's impossible to explain what Nityananda Prabhu completed even within half an hour. His activities, his schedule was so jam-packed. We were hearing actually Vyasaputra of His Holiness Jaya Pataka Swami Maharaj, how busy his schedule is. Yesterday he gave the class here in Mayapur in the morning, and then he mentioned that I have to go at 9 o'clock for an emergency bureau meeting. So not only preaching every day, His Holiness giving class every day, every evening, and regularly giving class in the temple, and also joining all of the various administrative, according to his administrative responsibilities as a GBC and a co-director in Mayapur, and a Mayapur executive board member. So many responsibilities he has. And he's very busy, even in his condition, his awkward health condition. Still, he's so busy, his schedule is so busy. So the great follower of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. So similarly, Lord Nityananda Prabhu in Panihati, his schedule was so jam-packed that you cannot even describe what he would do in half an hour. So one day, Lord Nityananda, he desired to decorate himself with different ornaments and fine dresses. Yesterday, I asked an interesting topic came up in the Srimad Bhagavatam class. It's described in 3rd canto. The description of the kingdom of God by Vaikuntha Loka is described, and there it mentions that the devotees they fly in the Biman Pushpa, the Pushpa Biman, the flower airplanes. They fly around, and there Loki Narayan are the predominating worshipable deities, and also the devotees. Along with their sweethearts. In other words, there's couples. I found it very fascinating. There's couples in the Vaikuntha Loka, and husbands and wives, it appears. And of course, Lakshmi Narayan, they're also husband and wife. And in their social interaction with the other residents of Vaikuntha, there's other couples, married couples. And in this way, they're enjoying their transcendental pastimes. And I asked His Holiness at the end of the class, I said, that's very interesting that, because Krishna says in Gita, Ananda Chintayantamam, Ye Jana Payupasya, worshiping him with exclusive devotion. I said, how we can have a sweetheart? How is there some room in the heart for sweetheart? And His Holiness answered that he answered, his answer was very deep. He said, we don't become desireless. We desire everything. We desire everything in alignment with Krishna's desire. So Krishna, Dwarkadish, Vaikuntanath, he has Lakshmi Devi. And he also likes to, it's not that he's the only couple. So he desires that there's other couples, and that enhances the atmosphere in his pastime. He's the supreme couple, they're the supreme couple, the divine couple. And then and there's other couples. And so he is explaining, we don't become desireless, but so you can have the sweetheart in Vaikuntha. And this enhances the relationship of Lakshmi Narayan. Very fascinating. So that's a very deep subject. Of course, it will be discussed in great detail, but just mentioning how desires, it's not that we have to give up desires, but we desire what the Lord desires. Madgatena anta atmana, sharavan bhajate jomam shami juktotam mataha. Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, end of the 6th chapter, Yoginam api sharvesham, of all the spiritualists, of all the yogis, Yoginam api sharvesham, madgatena anta atmana, that the one who in the anta atmana, deep within his heart, madgatena, fulfills my desire, follows my path, abides in me, Krishna, Prabhupada translates, abides in me, madgatena, and makes me the goal, fulfills my desires, aligns his desire with my desire, madgatena, anta atmana, deep within the heart. Sharavan bhajate, your man worships me with faith and devotion. Same chukta uttamata, I consider him the most intimately united with me in yoga. So we have desires which are in alignment with Krishna's desires. So we'll hear about Lord Nityananda, how he's dressing when he's preaching. And he's dressing in order to attract the people to Krishna consciousness, to fulfill the order that he'd been given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Anaraga Prabhati Kodaha Prakashe. One time I was in Kolkata, Rathayatra, and we were staying in the apartment building along with Nitto Lila Pravishta Shula Bhakti Chadu Shami Maharaj. Every evening, he and Shula Jayapataka Shami Maharaj were giving lectures in Mandel, the main stage. And I was MC, and I would announce them. And I was going to the Pandal with His Holiness Nitto Lila Pravishta Shula Bhakti Chadu Shami Maharaj, and we were in the elevator, and I was wearing. I'm not wearing now because we're at home here, we're relaxed, but I was wearing a nice silk Punjabi, blue color. And His Holiness commented, oh, Atul Krishna, you look very nice today. And he said, you always look good, but today you look especially nice. And then he said, Prabhupada wanted that the Grihastas look very first class when they're preaching. So we'll hear about Lord Nityananda's dress when he's preaching. Ichamatro. So he desired, Lord Nityananda Prabhu at that time, he desired to dress himself in ornaments, fine ornaments and dresses. So Ichamatro, Sharva Alankar, Shekhane, Apashan, Ashia, Hoilo, Vidyamane. The Ichamatra, just by desiring, this is the Icha Shakti of the Supreme Lord. He desires, just by desiring something, it becomes fulfilled. Just like this material world, it's simply a manifestation of his desire. He desires, and because the conditioned souls, they want to try. We've come to this material world because we want to try to enjoy as the imitator enjoyer. It's called the Purusha Bhav. Purusha Bhav. Tehishmin Purusha Paraha Paramatmeti Chap Jukto. Upadrasta Anumanta Bhata Bhakti. Upadrasta Anumanta Bhata Bhakti. Yeah, Upadrasta Anumanta. Krishna describes in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita how he's situated as a super soul in the heart of all living beings. Upadrasta Anumanta Bhata Bhakti Nishara. Paramatma chapter 2. In Purusha Para. He's in this body, Dehish Ajmin Purusha Araha, he's the supreme enjoyer. But we try to compete with Krishna as the supreme enjoyer. We try to become the enjoyer that's called Purusha Bhav. And because of that attempt to enjoy separate from Krishna, we actually come to the material world. Purusha prakriti shtohi bhunkte prakriti janganai karanam gunasanga sada sadyoni janmashu. That because of that bhav, the Purusha, we think we are the enjoyer. Purusha prakriti shto, situated in matter. Purusha prakriti shtohi bhunkte prakriti janganai, trying to enjoy the material energy. Karanam gunasanga asyad, because of that association with the material energy. Sada sadyoni janmashu. We have to take birth again and again in this material world. So we're the imitating Purusha. But the Supreme Purusha, Param Purusha, Sri Krishna, and his Vishnu Tattva expansions, just by desiring something, it becomes manifest. Just like this material world, Ichana Rupam Abhiyasha Chicheshtesha, that the material world is simply Icha Anurupam. It is a manifestation of, just by desiring, the material world is created. Sisti, Stiti, Pralaya, Sharana, Shakti, Chaye, Vyasha, Bhuvanani, Vivati, Durga, Ichchan Rupam, Apiyasha, Chete, Govinda Mahadi, Purusham, Kalaham, Bajami. Lord Brahma is describing that Sisti, Stiti, Pralaya, the creation, the maintenance, and the destruction, Sisti, Stiti, Pralaya, Sharana, Shakti, Eka, of this material world. Chaye, Vyasha, Bhuvanani, Vivati, Durga. It is conducted under the supervision of Ma Durga, Bhavani, and it is Ichana Rupam, Abhiyasha Chachesh, Icha, just by desiring. He desires and the material world becomes created under the supervision of Ma Durga. Ichana Rupam, Abhiyasha Chachesh, Chaya Vyasha Bhuvanani Vajidu. Chaya, just like a shadow. The material world is like a shadow of the spiritual reality. So things kind of look real here. Asatyeda Satta Korimani Nityananda Nityananda Nishta Asatyeda Satya Korimani. Yes, maybe we'll sing that song next week. Asatyeda Satta Korimani Nityananda Prabhu Nityananda Nishta, that we consider the temporary things to be Asatyeda Satta. Within the false, the illusion of this world, asatya, the satya kurimani, we think it's real. Why do we think it's real? Because there is a reality, and this is a shadow, this is a reflection, pratibemba or chaya, a shadow, and because we've lost we've disconnected, let's say, or deactivated our actual relationship with the Supreme Lord, then that relationship has become diverted to the external energy of Krishna Boli. Shai Jiva Anadi Bahirmuka Oteva Maya Tare Deva Shamsha Dukha. Mahaprabhu explains to Srila Sanatana Goswami Prabhupada in a Sanatana Shikha why we are suffering. Kene Amare Jorita Putra Ihana Hai Jane Kamonita Hoy. Why am I suffering? Kene Amare Jorita Putra. Why am I in threefold miseries always inflicting trouble upon me? Ihana Hai Jane. If I do not know this, Kamonita Hoy. How can I get any benefit? Kayami, Kene Amare, Jodita, who am I? Kayami, Kene Amare, Jodita Putra, who am I? Why am I suffering the threefold miseries? And Mahaprabhu replies that Krishna Bhuli, for having forgotten Krishna, Krishna Bhuli, Shai Jiva, Anadi Rabahir Mukha. Krishna Bhuli, Shai Jiva, Anadi Rabahir, forgetting Krishna. Krishna Bhuli, Shai Jiva, the living entity, Anadi Rabahir Mukha. We become attracted to the Bahir Mukha, the external energy. For that reason, Maya Tarideva Shangsha Dukha. And that's the cause of all of our suffering in this world. So Nityananda Prabhu, he desired to dress himself in fine ornaments and dresses. Ichamatra, Sharva, Alanka, Shekane. At that moment, Shekane, Ichamatra, just by him desiring, Sharva Alanka, Upashane, Ashiya, Hoilo, Vidamane, all beautiful fine dresses and ornaments, many pious people immediately arrived where Nityananda Prabhu was staying, whether it may be in Raghav Bhavan, but anyway, it's in Panihati. They arrived with attractive ornaments of gold, silver, and various precious stones like diamonds, emeralds, rubies, corals, and fine silk cloth, and pearl necklaces. Just so many pious people. Imagine that. That's why that's the difference between the Jiva and the Supreme Lord, Atma and Paramatma. We have to work so hard to get such things, such labor, and even we don't really get what we want. Our desires are never really fulfilled. They always remain unfulfilled. In Gita also Krishna says that Abritam Jnani no Nita Kama Rupena Kuntaya Dushpurena Nalenacha Kama Rupena Kuntaya. The material desires of the living entity, the Dushpuren Analenacha, the Dushpuren. Puren is fulfilling, Dushpuren. They're impossible to fulfill. One's desires in this material world always remain unfulfilled. And in this way, we're victimized and we're the slave of desires that are never fulfilled. And we remain serving and trying to fulfill these desires and again take birth in this world. But the Supreme Lord, Ichamatro, just by desiring, everything automatically becomes fulfilled. So many pious people came and they provided so many beautiful gems, rubies, ornaments, diamonds, necklaces, and fine silk cloths. So the Lord, he dressed himself, Lord Nityananda, in beautiful dresses with variety of shapes and designs and jewelry, which was so beautiful that the gold ornaments studded with pearls, emeralds, rubies. The gold was intricately worked upon, actually, Panihati, that whole area in Kolkata, famous for goldsmiths, Bengali goldsmiths. And even you go all to the Middle East countries, in Dubai, in Qatar, particularly in Dubai, the huge Bengali communities there, and their main business is the goldsmiths. They're intricate, they're artists. The Bengalis are artists. They're beautiful. Craftsmen, singers, musicians, actors, film producers. Bengali, they are artists. So the gold, it was so beautifully, designed and intricately worked upon by the first class goldsmiths, and all these jewels were brought and jewelry, and it was brought to Lord Nityananda. On his rings, he wore 10 rings on his fingers. 10 rings on his fingers. 10 rings on each finger. Seems like on the thumbs as well. Prabhupada also had rings. Prabhupada had rings. People would give gifts, and Prabhupada would wear beautiful rings. So on each of his fingers and thumb, he had beautiful rings. Had brilliant necklaces of priceless gems on his neck and chest. And for the pleasure of Maheshwar, his great devotee, Mahadev, he had a gold and silver necklace which was bedecked with Rudraksha beads. And it was so beautiful as he moved with his beautiful dress. The light set afire, the gems set into his golden earrings. White cream and blue yellow silk draped. The cloth was with such flowing grace. It was an enchanting sight. And the devotees also, they offered beautiful fragrant garlands of Malati and Malaka and Champa, which were so fragrant, and they swayed with each motion of Lord Nityananda's movement. And the fragrance of the garlands mixed with the aroma of the fresh sandalwood paste that was anointing his forehead and limbs. And in this way, the whole area was filled with a heavy, sweet scent. He wore a turban with beautiful, soft, shining silks of different hues, which made a beautiful multicolored turban. And he had beautiful flowers, also bright colored flowers that were decorated in the turbans. Lord Nityananda's irresistible glowing charm, it overshadowed the brilliance of millions of moons. And in his beautiful attire and beautiful appearance, Lord Nityananda was constantly chanting the holy name of the Lord. Lord Nityananda's associates, the cowherd boys that were accompanying him, they dressed themselves also in a very exquisite manner. They had bracelets on their arms and bangles on their legs, and they had ankle bells, nupur, and they had beautiful necklaces with buffalo horns and sticks. And they had ropes and flutes and garlands of gunja. Gunja is a little fruit, like reddish and a little black. It grows in Vrindavan. Gunja mala. They're all expansions of the cowherd boys of Vrindavan. In Panihati, Lord Nityananda explained the Gopa Jati. I'm a cowherd boy. Bahut Gopa gon shonge. And I've appeared with so many other cowherd boys. Amra Shukpai e Pulin Bojan Ronge. We enjoy so much happiness having picnics on the bank of the river. And in this way, the Panihati festival was performed. So his preachers, his preaching party, they're all just like cowherd boys with flutes and horns and ropes and sticks and ankle bells and bracelets and buffalo horns. And in this way, Emoto Nityananda Shwa Anubhav Ronge. Nityananda Shwa Anubhav Ronge, enjoying the ecstasy of himself. This is the nature of the Supreme Personality of God. He doesn't require the jiva, amra, the living entities, amra. Breaking into Bengali here, amra. We, the jivas, we actually get happiness, material happiness. It's dependent upon the external things. Bhoga shaya prashaktanam, bhoga ashvaya. That's so what's that? Shangspashaja bhoga. Shangspashaja bhoga. 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the bhoga, the enjoyment in this material world that comes from shangspasha, contacting the senses with their objects. When you see beautiful things, when you hear beautiful sound, when you taste delicious things, when you smell aroma, when you touch, this is the full gamut which is available. This is all that's available. Material enjoyment, that's all you've got, actually. That's its full extent. Different varieties of the sensual contact with the senses with their objects. And the mind mixes in there to kind of flavor things up a little bit, but that's it. But without those external facilities, you cannot enjoy in this material world. You become greatly frustrated. But the Lord, he enjoys from within, Atmarama. He enjoys Swa Anubhav Range. He enjoys his own self. He doesn't require anything external for enjoyment. Emoto Nityananda Shwanubhave Ronge. Enjoying his own ecstatic mood. Shwanubhave Ronge. Biharen Shokal Parshad Kori Shonge. He enjoys Shokal Parshad Kori Shonge along with his eternal associates. And in this way, they're dressed up for preaching. Janabir Dui Kulai, Joto Ache Gram. All of the villages, Joto Ache Gram, Janavir Dui Kulai, on the banks, Dui Kulai, on both sides of the banks of Ganga here in Panihati. It's a very wonderful place, the area of Panihati. And all along the banks of Ganga on both sides in the Panihati area are so many different ashrams and temples. Even the Ramakrishna Mission, actually, they have their headquarters just near that place in Belur Mott. It's on the banks of the Ganga, just near Panihati. The whole area, because why? Because that place is so purified, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda Prabhu performed their transcendental pastimes there and blessed that place. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always present there. Gaudama Jai Shabashtan Gorilla Brahmana Ronge Shai Shabashtan Heribo Ami Pranaya Bhakata Shange. Gaudama, my dear Lord, Mahaprabhu, Gaudama, Jai Shabashtan, all of the places, Gorilla Brahmana Ronge, he performed his transcendental blissful pastimes, Shai Shabashtan, all of those places, Heribo Ami, I desire to see Pranayi Bhakata Shange in the association of loving devotees, Kalpa Bhakti Singh. So because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his pastimes there, the place is so surcharged with spiritual energy. And so Nityananda Prabhu preached on both sides of the Ganga. Chanavir Dui Kule, Joto Ache Gram, all of the villages on both sides of the Ganga there, Sharvatra, Brahman, Nityananda, Jyoti Dham. He wandered through all of those villages, Nityananda Prabhu, who is the most effulgent, Jyoti Dham. Janavira Dui Kule, Joto Ache Gram, Shabatra Brahman, Nityananda Jyoti Dham. Nityananda Jyoti Dham, the most effulgent, the source of all effulgence, Nityananda Prabhu. He wandered on both banks of the Ganga. So sometimes they were on one side, on the east bank, sometimes on the west bank, and they would cross in the boat. Darshan Matra Sharva Jeev Mugdha Hoy. Seeing Lord Nityananda in his beautiful dress with his associates, the cowherd boys, and Nityananda was so beautiful ornaments and luxurious dress, just seeing him. Darshan Matra Sharva Jeev Mugdha Hoy. Everyone was completely astonished. Nam Tattva Nityananda Rashamoy. Philosophy here. Nam Tattva Nityananda Rashamoy. He's the combined form of the holy name and the form of the Supreme Lord and the embodiment of all transcendental mallow. Just see how, what a highly elevated language is Bengali, that it takes almost three statements and a long sentence to try to translate that into Bengali. In English, he's Nityananda, the most blissful. This is the one sentence. In Bengali, it's 6 words. In English, it's 15 or 20 words. The most blissful Nityananda is the combined form of the holy name and the form of the Supreme Lord and the embodiment of all transcendental mallow. In Bengali, that Nam Tattva Dui Nityananda Rashamoy. Nam Tattva Dui. He's the personification of the holy name. He is the Supreme Lord. Nam Tattva Dui Nityananda Rashamoy. He is the embodiment of all transcendental mallows. In his purport, Srila Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that the holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself combine together and manifest as Swayam Prakash Nityananda, the reservoir of transcendental happiness. Sri Nityananda Prabhu and the name Sri Nityananda are the most relishable transcendental objects. And he comments that the ornaments that were worn by Lord Nityananda Prabhu were to attract the attention of the people, bewildered by opulence. And thus they became astonished and found the sweetness and topics of Krishna Katha so wonderful as a result of Lord Nityananda Prabhu's preaching strategy. So similarly, as I was mentioning, the reference that Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj made in regard dress, that he said, Prabhupada said the devotees should dress very beautifully, very nicely, very eloquently, because this is an aspect of preaching. In Prabhupada, in fact, Prabhupada quotes a English aphorism: first dress and then address. First dress, then address. First dress, then address. So it's very important, the appearance, because the common people, of course, in the country where I was born, people, they're a little different. You can see the Australians when you're traveling, if you're passing through Singapore or Bangkok and the international terminals, you'll see all the Australians. They're the one with shorts and flip-flop. They're what in India, what you wear in the bathroom, the flip-flop sandals. The Australians wear them t-shirt and short pant and the flip-flop. But in other countries where people are more cultured, it's very important how you dress. In fact, I was astonished when I first came to Bengal, and I'd see in the villages that when people would go to visit somebody in a journey in the train, they'd dress so nicely. The ladies with beautiful colored saris, the ladies particularly, the men they're a little bit, they just wear the pants and the shirt, influenced by the modern culture of the West. But the ladies, they dress up so nicely with jewelry and beautifully colored saris. I'm assuming in South India also the same style is there. When they travel in public, the ladies, they dress very, very beautifully. And it's important to them. And such people, the common people, they tend to evaluate a person according to their dress. This is the I remember we were discussing about the Kaitika Brahman, the itinerant Brahman who was mendicant, who was wandering Krishna Udesha, for the satisfaction of Krishna, wandering from one holy place to another, and he came to the home of Jagannath Mishra. And Vrindavan Das Thakur describes his character. He says that around his neck was the Shalagram Shila and Gopal deity, and he was constant, from his lips, he was constantly chanting the name of Krishna. That's how he was described. His dress wasn't described. His sadhana and his consciousness were described. So in an elevated society, People, this is what's appreciated, a person's consciousness, a person's sadhana practice, and what they speak. But in the common society, how a person dresses is very important. So even the elevated Vaishnavas, they take care to dress very appropriately in order to be able to present Krishna consciousness to the common people. We see this in our acharyas, our immediate acharya, Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He would dress with shoes and an overcoat and like a gentleman, even when he was preaching in Radha Kund. And the Babajis, they just wear one cloth there, or Radha Kund, and of course he was purposely confronting there that you cannot just externally imitate the Goswamis and consider yourself an authentic Rupanuga. You have to take up the mission of the Goswamis to be a genuine Rupanuga. Sri Chaitanya Mano Bishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale Shrayan Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Shvapadantikam. Rupa Goswami, whose interest was to establish the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this world. So the preachers of Krishna consciousness there, they were Rupanugas. So Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his dress was very extraordinary. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you see many pictures of him. Of course, he had shaven head and big tulasi, and he had tilak. He had a mustache sometimes, and he would wear the opulent dress of the magistrate, and he was and sometimes a hat for the picture. And Prabhupada also commented that I'm prepared to wear any dress. I'll wear a suit, whatever is required, because Prabhupada never was required to do that. He was always wearing the dress of a sannyasi. And he was proud of that in comparison to other preachers of Vedic knowledge who came to the West and assumed the dress and the behavior, the eating style, eating with a knife and fork, sitting at a table and eating, and these things. The others came from the West at the time of Prabhupada's preaching in the West. He noted that they were influenced by the Western culture, and they even, Dr. Mishra, Prabhupada, he told Prabhupada, you cannot wear the dress like that. You have to look like a Westerner. You have to eat like a Westerner with a knife and fork. But Prabhupada never did. The Prabhupada always ate with his hand, and he introduced the eating with the hand. And this is Vedic. It's so much better for your health, eating with your hand, because you feel the food before putting it in your mouth, and already the body is prepared to digest that food just by touching. You know the heat, you know the texture. And this is first class, eating on a banana leaf with the hand. It's first class. Bharat Bhumi. In the West, the people are so much diverted from actual first class behavior. They have a knife and a fork, and then at the end of the meal, they don't even wash their hands. They just take a napkin, and we see in India, in the cities, where people are adopting these customs, sitting at the table, knife and fork. So we were discussing the dress. How the Vaishnavas. Of course, when we preach, and Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he set up tables and knife and fork for the governor of Bengal, who was British, John Alexander. He came for the opening of the Chaitanya Math, establishing Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's temple there. He came on the boat, and they built a road from Hularghat. He came on the boat. He came on the train. I think it was a train from Navadip, and then he crossed the river. And then there was nothing on this side. There was a town in Navadip, but nothing on this side. So they built the road to the Chaitanya Math for the governor of Bengal, John Alexander, and they had tables and everything, tables and tablecloth and the napkins and the knife and fork. And I think even they had meat, as far as I understand, for the preaching. This is Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He understood. Anything, we're not attached to these things, but whatever is going to be favorable for preaching, we will accept. And this is also the mood of Srila Prabhupada, and this is the mood of ISKCON, and for this reason ISKCON is so effectively spread all over the world. So Lord Nityananda was very beautifully dressed in his preaching. Even the atheists and agnostics, when they saw the beautiful form of Lord Nityananda, their hearts melted, and they desired to offer everything to him. Nityananda Sharupe Sharir Modur. The form of Nityananda Sharupe Sharir Modur. It is very sweet. Shabai, Kripa, Drishti, Koren, Prachur. And in this way, just by seeing him, he was bestowing so much mercy. Prachur, Koren, Kripa Drishti, Prochu, Soma, unlimited, Prochu, unlimited. Showering causes mercy, the Kripa Drishti. And wherever he went, dressed in such a beautiful manner, Nityananda Prabhu was performing the Sankirtan. Jekane Kore Nitya Krishna Sankirtan, Totai, Pibal, Hoy, Koto Koto John. Wherever he went, Lord Nityananda, Jekane Kore Nitya Krishna Sankirtan, wherever he performed the dancing, Nritya and Krishna Sankirtan, and the chanting of the holy name, Totai, Bibal, at that place, Bibal Hoy, Koto Koto John. How many? Unlimited people. Unlimited. So many people were overwhelmed with the Bibal. They were overwhelmed with ecstatic love of God just by seeing the dancing and hearing the kirtan of Lord Nityananda. Even children, they exhibited wonderful powers after associating with Lord Nityananda. The ordinary children from ordinary houses, they manifested such strength that they uprooted huge trees, roaring loudly, "I'm a cowherd boy. I'm a cowherd," and run about. This is the effect of seeing Lord Nityananda and seeing Lord Nityananda dancing and hearing his kirtan. The ordinary village children, they had such strength, they uprooted huge trees and called out, "I am a cowherd boy," and chanted, "Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya." In fact, after seeing Lord Nityananda wandering on both banks of the Ganga in Panihati, in his preaching, the common children, they stopped eating for a month. They stopped eating for a month. And Lord Nityananda Prabhu personally came and was feeding them. So in this way, Lord Nityananda Prabhu was preaching in such extraordinary manner in his pastimes at Panihati. Bhaja Bhai Heno Nityananda Charan. Bhaja Bhai Heno Nityananda Charan. Brothers, just worship the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. Bhaja Bhai Heno Nityananda Charan. Jaha Prashade Pai Chaitanya Charan. By the mercy of the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda, by his mercy, we can attain the shelter at the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Is that one? Heno Nitai Bine Bhai Radha Krishna Pai Dinai Tritha Kori Dhoro Nitai Pai Heno Nitai Heno Binai Nitai Heno Nitai Bine Bhai Radha Krishna Pai Dinai Tritha Kori Dhoro Nitai Pai Heno Nitai Bine Bhai, without Lord Nityananda, Radha Krishna Bhai, one cannot get the mercy of Radha Krishna. Dhrida Kori Dhoro Nitai Bhai. Clasp, hold on to Dhrida Kori with great determination. Dhrida Kori Dhoro, hold on to Nitai Bhai, the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. So, are there any questions on the topics herein discussed this morning?
Hi Krishna, everyone. You can raise a little hand, we can unmute you.
Any questions today?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Pranam, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, one question mentioning about the Leela of Nityananda Prabhu. So, one question how can we enter the Nitya Leela, enter the Kirtan of Nityananda Prabhu?
Oh, this is Adi Dev Dash.
Yes, Prabhu. Adideva
Achari.
Gopesh Das.
Huh?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. What a question. How fortunate I am to have students that ask such questions. How we can enter the Kirtan of Lord Nityananda. Well, we could go for another hour answering that. Well, everything that we're doing, this is the objective. This is the purpose. This is the goal of Krishna consciousness. Bhaktyamamabi janati yavanya shashvitatada tato mam tattato gyata bishite tat anantaram in the Bhagavad Gita. In the concluding chapter, Bhaktyamamabi janati, I can be known by devotion. Krishna's explaining, only by devotion. Bhaktyamamabi janati. Yavanya shashvitatada, one can know me as I am. Tato, then, mam tattato gyata. When one is mam tattato gyata, when one is fully Krishna conscious, Mam Tattvato Gyata, when one is realized in the science of Krishna consciousness, Mam Tattvato Gyata, Bishate, Tat Anantaram, Bishate, he can enter. Tat Anantaram, that eternal lila. So we follow the instructions of the spiritual master. We practice sadhana bhakti. We follow the principles. We regularly chant the holy name. Shankya Purvaganam Agan and Ativi Kalava Shani Krito. The Goswamis, they utilize the term Shankya Purvaganam. Shankya Purva means regulated chanting. Prabhupada says, just like taking medicine, you have to take the medicine as the physician prescribes. Shankya Purvaganam Agan, chanting. Nativi, bowing down. Kalava Shani Krito. In this way, they utilize their time. So we practice, we divert our energy, or we divert it away from simply satisfying our senses, and we divert it to fulfilling the order of the spiritual master, following a sadhana, as much as one becomes absorbed in Krishna consciousness by practicing sadhana bhakti. Maya Shaktamana Pada Yogam Yunjam Madasraya. Maya Shaktamana, fix your mind upon me. Absorb your mind. It's nice. There's many different activities that one can do in Krishna consciousness. So find something that you're attracted to, your mind is attracted to. Just like here, we're sharing with you these leaders of Lord Nityananda from Chaitanya Bhagavat. Why are we sharing? Because we're attracted. We're attracted. It's not just a matter of getting to the end of the class or filling up the time, but actually we're attracted. We're attracted. We have a taste. We like to hear. We like to hear and we like to chant the pastimes of Chaitanya Bhagavat and Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya. And this is the process. Mono diye shunabai Sri Chaitanya Koda Jai Bhakti Shangi Jai Jai Lila Goro Jota Jota. By absorbing the mind in hearing and chanting, then you will remember. And you become more and more absorbed. Then the taste for more hearing becomes Vistarena Mana Jogam Vibhutim Charjanadana. What is that? Vistarena Mana Jogam Vibhutim Charjanadana. Bhuyu Kotaya Kriti Shringatanashti Memritam. Again and again I want to hear Bhuyu Kotaya Kriti. There's no satisfaction. I'm never satiated in hearing about your glories. Arjuna is explaining 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita in the Vibhuti Jog section. Bhuyu Kotaya Triptihi. I'm never enough. Bhuyu Kotaya. Again, explain. Many things have already been explained up to the 9th chapter. Mammanava, Vamad Bhakta, Madhyaji, Mammanasku. Think of me, become my devotee, worship me, bow down to me. Many things were. Mami Vaishashi Yuktavam. Being completely absorbed in me. Atmana Matrayana. You will attain me. Many things are already described. And then Arjuna says, Bhuyu Kotaya Triptihi Shinvata Nashtimay Mritam. I'm never enough. I want to hear more and more. Vistarena Atmana Jogam Vibhuti Charjanadana. Please describe in detail how we can see you within this world. So absorb the mind in hearing and chanting. Absorb the mind in hearing and chanting as much as possible. And the more we absorb the mind in hearing and chanting, the more the taste for hearing and more hearing and chanting develops. And in this way, we prepare our life that by the end of life, we're just completely absorbed in hearing and chanting. And the bodily demands have minimized to the absolute minimum. Nidra hara vihara kaji vijito cha adantadino. The Goswamis, nidra, sleeping, aha, eating, vihara, adi, viha, nidra, aha, vihara gadi, recreational activities, vijito. They completely lost interest in. Cha adantadino, and they weren't proud, they were excessively humble. And how is it that they were able to lose interest in eating, sleeping, and recreational activities? Radha Krishna Guna Shmidir Madhuri Anandana Shamohito. Because they became completely enchanted by Shamohito, Shamoha. Shamohito, completely enchanted by Radha Krishna Guna, Radha Krishna Guna, the qualities of Radha Krishna, hearing about Radha and Krishna, because they were writing, the Goswamis were writing. Kabe Bhakti Rashashtra Karaya Likon, Kabe Chaitanya Chintan, Chaitanya Kotashuni Chaitanya Chintan, Kabe Bhakti Rashashtra Karaya Likon, they were writing, they'd been ordered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Revealed, it's been lost. Even Vrindavan was lost when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited. He personally saw Radhakund and said, here is Radhakund in Tubath. Everything has been developed after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Goswamis. So absorb oneself in the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, absorb oneself in hearing and chanting and preaching Krishna consciousness, and try to reduce the bodily demands as much as possible. That's the purpose of human life. And you can go through the various ashrams and grihastha, and as you get older, then you wind down the business and the family activities, and the sons take over everything, and you prepare, you're completely absorbed, so that you're chanting all day and hearing and chanting and all day, preaching, reading, worship. And the sooner you can come to that platform of complete absorption, the better. Sravane, Varane, Mone, Shabindriya Gone, Krishna Bhakti Vine, Nahe, Vole, Nahe, Shune. We're hearing about Vishwarup Mahashaya, Mahaprabhu's older brother, and his activities. Sravane, he's hearing. Varane, he's speaking. Mone, he's thinking. Shabindriya Gone, with all of his senses. Krishna Bhakti Vina, apart from serving Krishna, Na Vole, Na Shune. Arna Vole, Na Shune. He wasn't interested in saying anything, speaking anything, or hearing anything. Because Vishwarup Mahashaya, he was very young. He was Nityananda Prakash, but we don't have that taste. We're diseased. We still have the material disease. So take the medicine of practicing sadhana bhakti Krishna consciousness, and attachment to the material world becomes less and less. One becomes more and more absorbed in everything in relation to Krishna, and then the mind, the senses, the consciousness, the speaking, the hearing. And in this way, one can, before giving up his body, be completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And then, Tato Mam Tattva, Mam Tattva Gyatva, being completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Vishate Tattva Mantaram, one can enter those eternal pastimes. These are the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Antakale Chamam Eva Shmaram. In the final moment, being completely absorbed in me. Antakale Chamam Eva. Exclusively. Chamam Eva. Exclusively. Antakale, that final moment. Antaka Chamam Eva Shmaram. Mukta Kalevaram, giving up the body. Sha Prayati Samadhava. Then you attain my nature. Yati Nashya Shankshaya, of this there is no doubt. Anything else today?
Anybody has a question for Prabhuji?
Thank you. We'll continue again next week. We look forward to association then.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam. Hare
Jai
Krishna.
Shri Shri Gaur Siddhanath Ramanandi.
Jai. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mata. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.